right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Fearcast. This is the podcast dedicated to OCD and anxiety spectrum disorders and getting your life back. I'm your host, Kevin Foss. I'm a licensed therapist specializing in OCD and anxiety disorders. Thank you all so much for joining me for today. So this is a question and answer-based podcast. If you would like your question answered, go over to fearcastpodcast.com. You can send me a link over there, or you can send me a question over there through text. You can also message me, email me directly through at questions at fearcastpodcast.com. You can send me an audio question that way. Send me the shared link to like Google or wherever. Send me the audio file. This question today came from Ab, and she sent it to me over at Instagram. At Instagram, I am Fearcast Podcast over there. You can send your audio question over there. And these questions go to the tippity top of the list. So Ab sent this, I think, last week. So she is getting her question in. So I'm going to share her question here in just a moment. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about this question. So I have not a whole lot of preamble for today's episode. I just hope everybody is doing well and are working on themselves and are doing things that are preparing themselves for goodness today, whatever that may be. This is a transition time for a lot of people. For a lot of people, you're going back to school. For a lot of people, your kids are going back to school. For a lot of people, just nothing's happening. Just kind of, it's a whole lot of nothing, a whole lot of the same. So there's that. But however you are spending your day, I hope this next week is working, is shaping up to be a good one. I had this thought earlier today that I was wondering, like, what are you doing? What are you going to set yourself up for this week for success, for goodness, for fun, for engagement, for enjoyment? I don't know if we often consider that. I don't know if we often think about what are the things that I can do this week that are going to set me up for success on happiness. Now it can be happiness or joy or engagement or friendship or hobbies, and that can be enjoyment and engagement, all those things. But what are you going to do intentionally that set yourself up for that? I think sometimes we just kind of hope that it's going to happen, and then we sometimes just get disappointed that it then didn't happen, and we wonder why it didn't happen, and we just kind of go through the motions, and we go, well, I guess it's another week. Well, I hope it gets better this week. But we don't do a whole lot to set ourselves up for the goodness that we could have. So, as this episode is showing up, usually shows up Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday, if you're on that side of the world. But, what are you going to do this week? What can you do that would help yourself out? Is it you're going to schedule something in for your hobby? Is it you're going to communicate to your partner that I need some time this week to do X? And that may be exercise. It may be going and, hanging out with a friend, grabbing coffee. It may be I just need some time to read, right? It may be that you're going to finally schedule that trip to wherever, or you're going to call up a buddy or schedule yourself to take that class that you've been wanting to do. So whatever it is, what is your intentional step that you can do this week that would get you a little bit closer to the joy and the happiness, the engagement and the fun? So think about that, and then think about what would be a step towards that. What would be a small step? What would be a big step? But what's something that you'd be willing to execute this week that would help you with that? All right. So I think I've rambled on enough. So let's jump into Ab's question, and then I will get into it.
So I've had anxiety and OCD. Well, I've officially been diagnosed with OCD for about a year now. And I've had loads of different themes. I'd say my main themes are the fear of psychosis and like schizophrenia. And my other main fear is HOCD, like SOCD, whatever you call it. They're my main things. But recently, it's like I've developed a fear of getting depressed. I had like 2 days, 3 weeks ago where I felt depressed. And then this week, it's just like I've developed a fear of feeling depressed, and it's actually making me feel depressed, but it's hard to tell if I'm is my OCD latched onto a fear of depression, or I've actually just developed depression, or I'm developing depression. So obviously if I'm like scared of having a heart attack, it makes me feel like I'm having a heart attack. So is it doing the same thing with depression? And I feel like I'm gonna cry. It's really embarrassing. This goes on in my but I'm just scared of feeling like this all the time, and I just don't. I feel like the feeling of anxiety is familiar. Like, I don't enjoy it, but I know sort of where I stand with it. Like, this is horrible, and there's like no faults that go with it. Like, it's not like I've been triggered by one of my other themes to feel like this. Like, I just don't understand why I'm feeling like this. Is it just that I'm scared of being depressed, or is it that I'm just actually depressed? I literally just wake up in the morning with an empty feeling inside, and all I want to do is cry. It's Monday now for me in the UK, and I've been feeling like this since like last Thursday, so it's not even been long, but it's like, oh my god, no. There is anxiety as well. Like yesterday I had anxiety in my belly for no reason, but I suppose I have anxiety because I'm scared I want to feel like this forever. But even throughout the day, it's not 24/7. It's definitely always when I wake up. But as I'm going to bed, it sort of eases. Maybe because I know I'm going to sleep, so I don't have to worry and think about things. But yeah, it's not 24/7. It feels like it at times. But like yesterday, I noticed myself like laughing and enjoying myself, and I'm like, okay, no, this is how I usually feel majority of the day. Even when I'm having a flare of my theme, it's really bad in that moment, but I can still, I don't know, I'm quite a happy person, do you know what I mean? So to feel like this is quite scary. I suppose that's why OCD is attacked this for me, because I value being a happy person, do you know what I mean? Go within the day, like yesterday there were times when I was laughing, but I also cried like 3 or 4 times yesterday when I felt like this. So it comes and goes within a day. I don't know.
All right, Ab, thank you so much for sending that out. So I recognize I was going to say this at the front end. There was a bunch of kind of bad recording. I don't know where she was or what was going on around the time of her recording. I'm going to try to EQ as much of that out as I can, but I don't know how much I can do. So hopefully, there are just some elements that we might not hear, some parts that were just cut off, and that's unfortunately part of the process. But Ab, I heard a lot of what you were saying. What's most importantly, I heard the feeling behind it, that feeling of desperation and that feeling of terror and fear and sadness ultimately. And it really resonated with me. I think I anticipate it's going to resonate with a lot of people listening to this. So there are a couple of different layers to look at this, and I just want to kind of go through a couple of those. And I as always, the more I do a podcast, the more I go, I know that I'm going to miss things, and I know that there are elements that I just can't know. So Ab, I appreciate your patience with me in this. So certainly one of the things I heard is that one of your fears, you said, was certainly sexual orientation OCD. I know you called it HOCD, potato, tomato, and fear of psychosis or schizophrenia, right? So, those are certainly themes that plenty of people have. They're certainly workable. I hope that you are connected with a therapist and are working through those things. But the main thing that I heard you worrying about was that feeling of depression. And that sounds like it's been, off and on, but it sounds like for this past week, it's just been pretty heavy and heavier than it has been. And that feeling that, you are feeling depressed, but is it OCD causing you to feel depressed, or are you actually just depressed? And, that's its whole another thing. But it sounds like also, I will also say, and I'm kind of wondering if this is also what's happening, if there's depression and anxiety is grabbing onto that and now making you worry and becoming its own obsession. I wonder if it's tangentially related to this fear of psychosis or this fear of schizophrenia. Maybe I'm wondering if it's, if you were in my office, is it just this general mental health fear, this fear of, drifting off into something that's worse than what you're currently experiencing? I wonder if that might be a fear of losing control, or a fear of being out of control, a fear of not being able to have agency or not feeling like yourself. I know a lot of times some of the themes that motivate sexual orientation OCD can be this fear of, what if I don't really know myself? What if I'm not truly who I am? What if I don't know what I'm about, where I'm going, who I should be with, who I am, right? So, I wonder if some of those are the themes that may be going on for you, Ab, that may be worth, expanding with or expounding upon with a therapist. But regardless, I wanted to talk about that sense of depression and how that's experienced. And, I'm going to kind of fluctuate one from my experience as a therapist working with clients struggling with anxiety and OCD, and also someone who is prone to and kind of leans towards the side of depression myself, and, having, going through that from time to time. So first, from one of the things that I've experienced in working with folks with OCD and anxiety is anxiety and depression go hand in hand. That I've heard it said, and I've said it then 1,000 times. It's, if I meet someone who has OCD, I expect to also meet someone who is depressed, or who periodically experiences depression. I think I've heard Kimberly Quinlan say it's anxiety provoking to be depressed, and it's depressing to be anxious. And I'm probably misquoting her, and that's probably fine too. She'll send me an angry text, possibly. We'll see what happens. That's not true. She doesn't send angry texts. She's a delightful human. But anyways, it can feel overwhelming. And I think that for a lot of people experiencing OCD, from time to time, there are going to be those moments of feeling depressed, simply because if it feels like you are limited by something that feels, quote, crazy, that feels out of sorts, that feels alien to who it is that you are and what you've been trying to do in life, and it feels like you have to do a bunch of things that you don't really want to do, right? I'm talking about compulsions here, avoidances, ruminations, right? Nobody says, I love doing those things. They say, I have to do those things in order to feel good and right and safe. Now, similarly, is that people can feel depressed by now. Here's all the stuff that they can no longer do. Anxiety and OCD take. They never really enhance. They take. They say, you can't do this anymore. This is now dangerous. This is off limits. This is not for you. And that may be, that can be anything. But it's depressing to then have that thought, this is my life now. And I can never have that thing that I want. I can never be in that place that other people seem to be in. I can never have that future that I've wanted and have dreamed and have worked towards. And, again, this is me not knowing you, Ab. I'm just kind of guessing. But for a lot of folks, it's depressing to say, this is my life now. And it's not the life that you signed up for or wanted to have. So they're going to be hand in hand. One of the things that we certainly work on in treatment is tolerating the ups and downs of emotion. So through, particularly through acceptance and commitment therapy, and also through exposure and response prevention, we're learning to have the ups and downs of life. That you, as a human who has dynamic emotions, for better or for worse, right? Some days are going to be better than others, whether you wanted it to or not. And some experiences are just going to, some days you're just going to feel on top of the world, and some days you're going to feel depressed and out of it. Some days you're going to feel disengaged. Some days you're just going to feel on fire for no stinking reason. And some days you're going to feel wildly anxious. And sometimes those things happen in predictable ways, right? I mean, my silly example is, I can't control how it is that I feel, but I can influence it tremendously. I mean, I'm more likely, and maybe this is one of the reasons I was thinking about the thing that I shared earlier in the episode, is, if I'm a lot more likely to be happy if I go to Disneyland and hang out there than I am if I'm just sitting at home staring at the wall. But I've been to Disneyland a bunch. Up until about a year ago, we were pass holders and we went a lot. And I felt a lot of feelings while I was there. Happiness was one of them. I also felt angry and annoyed and spiteful and disengaged, and I felt blah, for lack of a better word, and fill in the blank with all sorts of emotions. I've felt a lot. But I also felt happiness and joy and peace and excitement, right? I also felt all those things too. But I'm telling you, if I said, I'm just not going to do this, I'm not going to go, I probably wouldn't open myself to the experience of having a good time. And I'd probably then sign myself up for fewer chances of having fun, of having enjoyment. But it doesn't guarantee it. So there's an expectation, I would say there's an expectation that through the course of treatment, through the course of treatment with OCD, you're likely to feel depressed at times. And sometimes when you're feeling stuck in treatment, or when you're feeling stuck in just other areas of your life, maybe directly connected to OCD or and anxiety, or maybe just tangentially, we can feel like we're not experiencing what we want, doing what we want, or going in the direction that we want. And that can feel depressing. That can make us feel bad and down. I would encourage you to be not too much, but a little bit self-reflective on this, meaning not to ruminate too much. I know that's what some people are probably thinking, but to sit back and say, is there anything in my life, is there anything in your life, Ab, that is that you can point to that would say, this sucks and I hate this, or I don't like the way that this is going. Sometimes with depression, there's an adaptive nature to it, meaning that when our brain hyper focuses on some crappy part of our life, there is a part of our brain that's saying, hey, this sucks. I don't like this for any number of reasons. This has to change, right? Now, it can become adaptive when we say, well, I'm going to change these things, whatever these things might be, right? I'm going to speak up for myself. I'm going to communicate better. I'm going to change this relationship. I'm going to establish this boundary. I'm going to maintain the boundary or reinforce that boundary. I'm going to stop going to this class. I'm going to change my major. Fill in the blank, right? There are these things in our life that we say, this thing sucks and I have to change that thing. Now, it may not be the magic bullet that changes everything and lifts the depression, but it's a way for us to say, this thing sucks and I need to try something different. So we try that. And then we notice once that change has been made, what is different? What's better? What's not better, right? Maybe there are things that are worse. I don't know. But we're going to notice what has happened. And then continue to see, are there places in life that still feel like they suck and they could be improved? We get stuck in depression sometimes when we say, this thing sucks and I'm not willing to change it, or this thing sucks and nothing will ever change, and we just feel stuck, right? I have certainly felt that in my life, and I think a lot of people have felt that too. So one thing that we can do with that again is to say, well, maybe some things might not be able to change. The reality that we have anxiety, the reality that we live where we live, the reality that we've been given the genetic cards that we've been given, right? But what's the next best thing? Because we can get stuck sometimes. I think I'm drifting a little bit, and I'm straddling the fence between OCD world and my personal experience with this. But then to say, some things we just can't change, or we can't change easily. So first, are there things that I have agency over? Are there things that I'd be willing to do differently? And then if there are just some things that feel like they're out of our control, what's the next best thing? Are there workarounds? Are there alternatives? And what I'm talking about in this is not to say just give up. Never saying you're going to give up on yourself. Never saying that you're going to sit in depression forever. But is to say, if I can't change X, I'm going to go around it and I'm going to try to do something different. So what's the next best thing and work towards that thing? and that might help. Now, I know I'm being intentionally ambiguous here, but I want you to fill in the blank with maybe what's a workaround, and for you to at least say, maybe there's another way to look at this, or maybe there are other options. And before you say there's nothing else out there, or there's nothing that can change, maybe have a conversation with someone who can maybe point out some alternatives to you. That's the magic of therapy. That's one of the magics of therapy, is that to chat about this stuff with a third party who, may be able to point some stuff out to you that you're a little too close to, or you can't quite see, or you are, again, just feeling stuck and are struggling with being creative outside of that. I've been there. I've absolutely been there. And I think a lot of other people out there have. So, one of the things that you had said in your call as well, and this is from my personal experience as well, is that you said anxiety is from time to time you get in that place where you're like, oh, this anxiety is anxiety here is, or the anxiety is that you're going to feel this forever. So I think that you said you're going to feel this depression forever. But then you went on to say, but I know it's not going to last forever. It happens particularly in the morning, right? Okay, so there's a lot there. So first, I'm curious about what are the thoughts that you have in the morning? What's going on? What are you dreading during the day? Is there something that really is coming to mind that you're kind of just tightening up and dreading throughout the day? Is it like you're going, oh, I don't want to have to deal with all these compulsions. Oh, I don't want to have to deal with the pressure of school. Oh, I don't want to deal with the pressure of my partner or of something else, right? And that might be pointing you to something that maybe needs some changing and may need some alteration in. But I also want to point out that feeling that you have in the morning doesn't last forever. One thing that I've come to a conclusion in my own depression that shows up from time to time, one is that I know it gets triggered by specific things, and I'm slow to bounce back. So I get beat up by something, and I feel down, I feel depressed, I feel, empty, whatever it might be. And it takes me a little bit of time to get back to myself, my excited self, my, whatever version of me is going to show up that day. And or my baseline version of me. I give myself the grace and patience to know that it's going to take time, and that's okay. And I need to communicate that with the people around me so they know that, it's not necessarily them, but it's me. It's partially me, is that my emotions take time to get back to where they are going to be. And I say that as riding that wave. Riding the wave of my emotional experience. I'm gonna feel better. At the very least, I'm gonna feel different, right? I may not get to good that day, but I'll eventually feel fine or less depressed or just empty or emotionless or energyless or whatever it might be, or disconnected. And I'm going to feel different. I know I will. And Ab, you will too. As an OCD therapist and as a therapist, we talk about uncertainty. We talk about, living with the uncertainty of life and all that stuff. There are a few things that I'm going to say you can be absolutely certain about. And I want you to remind yourself, this feeling will change. As bad as I feel and as good as I feel, that feeling will change. And it's going to feel better, and then it's going to feel kind of worse again, and then it's going to get good, and then it's going to get weird. But you're going to go through this roller coaster. But if you say, I feel like garbage, and this is my life now, it's going to feel terrible. Because oftentimes when we do that, then we ruminate. We start writing off our life. We get into that headspace where we go, this is the way it is now. So because this is the way it is, here are all the things that are not for me. And here are all the things that I'm now required to do or to feel or to experience. And it's a bleak picture, I'll tell you. I don't know if your brain goes to where my brain goes, but I bet they go to similar places. It's bleak. I'm trying to not use my pirate language today, but it goes to this place that nobody wants. And it's BS. It's a lie. It's a lie from depression. And hear me out, it's a good lie from depression. It's that feeling that says something's wrong and bad. We got to do something different. We got to change something, communicate better, communicate differently. We have to alter something. We have to try something new. We have to stop doing these things that aren't working for us or are causing us pain and depression, right? When we listen to that voice and we put something into action, that is the adaptive nature of that depressed feeling. When we stay stuck in it and we agree with that thought and say, yep, it sucks and that's the way it is, then that's the way it is. And then we help create it by sitting in it. And that's not helpful. And that's where I would encourage you to remind yourself, this feeling is going to change, and it sucks for now, because it does. And it's going to get better. So what can I do for myself today, for right now, that's going to help me get out of this funk, this slump, this depression, this negativity, right? Whatever it might be. Because what I'm agreeing with you on is we can feel depressed, and our anxiety about the possibility of feeling depressed can help create that sense of depression. So then you feel depressed, and then you start to ruminate and you start to fear. You fear, and then you ruminate about, what does this mean for your life, and how is this going to be, and is this going to stop, right? So there's a lot of connections that I'm just kind of glossing over. But it's this self-reinforcing cycle that just keeps you stuck. We sidestep that instead, and we say, this is going to change. So what can I do for myself today that's going to give me the best opportunity to get out of this, right? It doesn't mean we have to pretend like we're happy and go and do fun things, but it's like, go to class, go to work, show up. Now, sometimes we need some moment away. Now, I know that sounds it sounds like not hypocritical. I'm missing a word here. It sounds like I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth, right? Sometimes we do need a moment away, but that should be temporary. That should be for a short time, to feel our feelings, to maybe be introspective, to maybe reflect on something that sucks, but to then show up and to do. And that may be exercise, which often helps. It may be making sure that you're eating. It may be making sure that you are staying connected. Being honest about how you're feeling, not as I'm going to dump all my nonsense onto somebody else, but when someone says, hey, are you okay? You can go, no, not really, but I'm going to get through this, right? Or no, I'm not okay, and this is where I need help. Or this is what I could do. This is what I could use from you, or this is how you could help me in this process too. And you have that's part of that is a discussion with that other person about what they'd be willing to do, right? But regardless of that, it's what can we do to help us get out of this, right? Again, back to that Disneyland example. If I'm feeling depressed, I have a choice. I can sit and feel depressed at home, or I can feel depressed at Disneyland. Right? So which is my choice? I can feel depressed and not do anything and not feel productive and not get my requirements done or go to work or hang out with my kids or just be a responsible parent. Or I could feel like I'm in a funk and still show up. Because I'll tell you, once that funk lifts, because it will, I'm going to feel so much better about myself that I showed up and did the things that I was going to do. They did the things that are values-based, that are meaningful to me, that are important to me, that are, I keep saying like my requirements. It's like some of them are self-requirements that, this is the type of guy I want to be. I want to be a good dad. I want to be a therapist that shows up and is responsive. I want to be a podcaster, right? If I just went like, I'm feeling depressed, I'm just not going to put out a show this week, right? Now, by the way, that's happened. What then happens is later on that week when my funk is lifted, I go, why didn't I put out a podcast? That sucks. Because I want to be the guy who puts out a podcast. So I'm going to feel better later on in the week if I show up and still record. It may not be the best podcast episode ever, but it's going to be something. Now, hopefully I'm staying on track. I'm kind of getting out of here on that. We're getting out of sorts with it. But Ab, what I'd encourage you to do in this is to continue to push yourself and to continue to be compassionate with yourself, not beating yourself up, not saying those negative things about yourself because you're feeling depressed. But I also don't want you to buy into anxiety and depression's lies, that this is the way it is. This is the way it is for this exact moment, this one. But it will be different. Wait 5 minutes. There's a saying for Hawaiian weather. If you don't like how the weather is, wait 5 minutes. And to a certain degree, that's true, right? If it's super rainy in Hawaii, and like if you're like, I don't want the rain, just wait. It's going to be sunny in like 5 minutes because the weather changes all the time. Same thing with our emotions. If we don't like the way we feel, just wait. And by wait, keep living, keep moving forward, keep working to be engaged, and that feeling is going to help change, right? It will likely not change in the time that you want it to, but it never asked us how we felt, did it? So that's where we learn to roll with our emotions. We roll with the highs and lows. And that's what we're doing with anxiety through ERP, through cognitive behavioral therapy. We're saying, I guess, and also through acceptance commitment therapy, we're saying, this is how I feel for right now. This is. And what's more important to me? What is it that I want to try to accomplish in my day? And I'm going to try to then go do that. So, Ab, I'm sorry you're feeling this way, and I'm sorry that this has been so overwhelming to you. I can only I can only think about what you're going through from what I've experienced. So I'm not going to say it's the same, but I do know that feeling of, is this the way it is? And I hate the way that this feels. And I would encourage you to remind yourself of the truth. Remind yourself of the truth that things will change, your feelings will change, and that treatment helps, and that you can have agency for yourself to do things to make positive differences in your life. And that may be through challenging your obsessions, through resisting compulsions, through engaging actively with the things that trigger your anxiety, pushing into those places that you've been avoiding or putting off or had been scared to do, right? Whatever that might be. All of those things will help in time and slowly but surely. So be gracious with yourself, be patient with yourself, be positive, optimistic, and encouraging with yourself. You would be that with a friend who's going through the same thing, so you be that for you too. So, all right, Ab, I'm going to let you go here. So I appreciate that question, and I hope I was going to say, I hope things get better. They will get better. They will. And set yourself up for that, and you got this. So if you want to send in a follow-up with how things have been, feel free to send me a message over at Fearcast Podcast, or go over to Instagram at Fearcast Podcast, and I would appreciate that. And I'll put it up on a future episode as well if you're comfortable with that. So until then, have a good week. Thank you for listening to the Fearcast. If you would like your question answered on a future episode, please click on the Submit a Question link at fearcastpodcast.com. If you would like your question answered sooner, please send me a recording of your question to questions@fearcastpodcast.com, or by sending me an audio message through Instagram by DMing me at fearcastpodcast on Instagram. If you like the Fearcast, please write a review on your podcast platform of choice. Please remember that the Fearcast is not a substitute for psychotherapy. If you need a little bit of help in your recovery, please go over to fearcastpodcast.com and click on the Find Help link, and there's going to be some information for you there. So until next time, take a risk, challenge yourself, and don't take your brain too seriously.